to everybody, both members, officers and members of the public, to today's Executive Committee meeting. And today is the 22nd of July 2020. Thank you. Mr. Melhuish.
Thank you very much, Leader, and again welcome to everyone to this executive on the 22nd of July. And just to let you know that today's meeting is being held under the recent government regulations brought in to allow us for us to have remote meetings and to allow for decisions to be made. Hopefully today all members present will be able to hear the meeting. However, if there is a technical failure, the Leader will adjourn the meeting and reconvene at a convenient time when the technical problem has been resolved. Just to let you know that this meeting is being recorded, and a recording of this meeting will be made available on the Council's YouTube channel. Can I please remind all members of the Executive that they should have their video on, but will remain muted until invited to speak. And for members of the Executive, if you do need to attract the attention of the Leader, please could you use the instant messaging function on the bottom left-hand side of your screen. All members of the press and public who are at the meeting today will remain muted unless they have registered to speak, and the Chairman will let them know when they can make their presentation to the Executive, and they will be unmuted for that. The format of the meeting will be as per the agenda published, and I will now hand back to the Leader of Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Melhuish, and I apologise for members of the public who are probably wondering what's going on at the moment, but this is a format due to the current social distancing methods of holding virtual meetings. That is a process that we have to go through, so please bear with us and we'll get there as soon as we can. I'm now going to ask each councillor and officer who's taking part to introduce themselves and confirm that they can see and hear me before we start the official business of the committee. And I'll start with myself. Yes, I can certainly see and hear everything that's going on, and I'm chairman of the Executive Committee. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. I am Jill Slocum, Deputy Leader and Portfolio Holder for Inward Investment and Growth, and I can see and hear everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mike Caswell.
Good morning, Leader. Good morning, Executive. I am Mike Caswell, Portfolio Holder for Infrastructure and Transport. I can hear and clearly see you.
Thank you. Councillor Lance Duddridge.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Councillor Lance Duddridge, Portfolio Holder for Customer Access and Digital Delivery, and I can see and hear everything clearly.
Thank you very much. Councillor Gilling.
Good morning, Leader, everybody. Thank you. My name is Councillor Andrew Gilling. I'm the Portfolio Holder for Housing. I can clearly hear everything that's said and spoken.
Thank you. We can't see you at the moment, though. Councillor Mark Healey.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, Leader. I hope you can, I'll just start the video. I hope you can see me. Can you see me?
Yep.
Can everybody see me?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
good morning. My name's Mark Healey. I'm the Portfolio Holder for Commercial and Asset Management. I can clearly see and hear everything that's going on. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Janet Keane.
Good morning, everyone. Janet Keane, the Portfolio Holder for Communities and Wellbeing. I confirm that I can see and hear everything and everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll now go to members officer team. Mrs. Griffin, Chief Executive.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody. It's Allison Griffin, Chief Executive, and I can confirm I can see and hear everything perfectly. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Brown.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Bob Brown, Strategic Director. I can see and hear everything. Thank you.
Who else do we have here? Mr. Mander.
Good morning, Leader. I'm Tim Mander. I'm the Property and Commercialism Service Manager, and I can see and hear everything.
Thank you, Mr. Tait.
Good morning. I'm Nick Tait. I'm the Planning Policy Service Manager, and I can see and hear everything. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Turner.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Alison Turner, Assistant Director of Finance and Property and the Council Section 151 Officer. I can confirm I can hear and see everybody. Thank you.
And Ms. Faun.
Hi, it's Claire Faun, Corporate Relations Manager. I confirm I can see and hear everything.
Thank you. And we have with us today Dawn Lemon.
Thank you, Leader. I'm just observing the committee today. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Dorothy OFarrell.
Good morning, Leader. I confirm that I can see and hear everything. I'm a member of Legal Services and I'm here to observe and answer questions if required, though you have my colleague Stephen Hellard, who is the legal advisor to this committee.
Thank you. And without further ado, Mr. Hellard.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, I'm Steve Hellard, Deputy Monitoring Officer. Confirm that I can see and hear everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. And we've got Rose Stokes here with us as well, who's the Committee Officer or Scrutiny Officer. Are you there?
Hello, yeah, Rose Stokes here. I'm Scrutiny Officer to the Corporate Scrutiny Committee, and I confirm I can see and hear everything.
Thank you. And we've got Mr. Taylor.
Good morning, Leader. Yes, Steve Taylor, Committee Manager, just observing this meeting.
Yeah, Leila Nicholson.
Good morning, everyone. I'm just observing and assisting in the admin of this meeting.
Right, and for a later report, we've got Mr. Trevelyan here.
Good morning, everybody. I can hear and see everybody. My name is Christian Trevelyan, and I'm the Partnership Manager for Private Sector Housing. Thank you.
Thank you, and of course we've got Mr. Melhewish. And Mr. Melhewish, have I dealt with everybody who's here today? We also have the leader of the two opposition groups here, or leaders of the two opposition groups, and a number of members. Mr. Melhewish.
Yes, that's correct. There are a number of members of council who are listening, and a number here who will, I think, wish to make comments later in the proceedings. And I'm Andrew Melhewish. I'm the Executives Committee Officer for this meeting today.
Thank you. And if you're happy then for me to start the meeting, I shall do so with apologies.
Yes, and today, Leader, I'm pleased to report there are no apologies.
Thank you. Agenda item number 2 is declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? And if so, could you state what kind of interest they are, please?
Yes,
Councillor Healey.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Leader. I need to declare an interest in agenda item 6, please, as the applicant's aging contracts to me through business interests.
Thank you. That's personal and prejudicial, presumably, then.
It is.
Thank you. Councillor Keane?
Yes, Leader. Agenda item 6, the land at Lakeside. I have a predetermination on this item and therefore cannot speak.
Thank you. And how will that be handled, Mr. Hellard? Is that a personal prejudicial?
It's not an interest as such. I think the way it was dealt with last time is that Councillor Keane, I believe, spoke, but then when it came to consideration of the committee, was removed from the meeting as such until the next agenda item came before the committee. I believe that's how it will be dealt with today.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Right then, members.
Okay, just before you do move on, I'm just going to confirm that Councillor Healey, as he has declared a personal and prejudicial interest. Oh, sorry, we've got to do the minutes, so I'll do that after we've done the minutes. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of things. Sorry.
Mr. Healey, did you want Councillor Healey? Did you want to say something now before I go to minutes to do with declarations of interest?
Thank you, Leader. I think Mr. Melhewish has already interjected in that on my behalf. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, minutes. The minutes of the meetings held on the 24th of June and 1st of July were attached to the agenda. I'm going to do this slightly differently today in order to save time. Unless anyone wishes to raise an issue with the minutes, I'd like us to agree them so that I can sign them as a true and fair record. Does anyone have any objections on the accuracy of the minutes before them? No. In that case, we'll take those as read, and thank you very much. Agenda item 4, urgent business. I have none. Agenda item 5, public speaking. We have Joy Russell with us, has been registered to speak. Members will have had circulated to them the text of her speech today. And there are also a number of members of the public listening in, as well as representatives of the local press. I propose to take any public speaking with the agenda item concerned rather than at the beginning. And if members are happy with that, we'll move on to agenda item 6. Mr. Melhuish.
Yes, and now at this appropriate point, I am going to just confirm that Councillor Mark Healey, having declared a personal and prejudicial interest, is leaving the meeting room.
Thank you. Yeah, and he has left the meeting room. Right, then, I propose that we invite Joy Russell up front to speak and address the executive. Are you there, Joy Russell?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome this morning. Thank you very much for taking the time to attend the meeting. Without further ado, when you're ready, if you'd like to use your 3 minutes. Thank you.
Good morning, Executive. If access is such a problem to this site, how come we got over 80 people there safely on Saturday, most of them never having been there before at such short notice? Our gathering showed how much keeping green space means to the community. I watched them filing in from the footpaths, and it was amazing to see their reactions when they saw how beautiful the field was. It was outrageous that the call for the councillors to have a site visit was turned down last February. We might not be having this debate today if they had seen the field for themselves, realised its true potential, and you could be cracking on with spending the S106 money in the proper manner. Hopefully, having watched the drone footage in my film, you can understand better what we're all banging on about. It's so sad that we have to fight to save this space. You don't seem to care where you build, and nature has taken a back seat. I talked with a lady who showed us a petition dated back in '98 to ask the council if and when you are actually going to provide the green lung to the community as promised in '96, and if not, why not? It's scandalous that the council are reneging on their promises made years ago, and sadly, many of those signatories of that petition have now since passed on. Just because we live in a town, don't we have a right to live with beauty? Stop trying to wriggle out of that original promise. Your quota for supplying houses up to 2032 has nearly been met already. And there are solutions to provide better access. We believe the provision of our public open space is deliverable, and we don't want you to miss the opportunity of providing a wonderful amenity of huge value, not only to our community, but our nature and wildlife. Only this will be of benefit to our community, not even more housing. Highbridge is overdeveloped, and you must spread the load more evenly by moving on with your colouring and exercise, as this page is full. There's a huge groundswell of dissatisfaction and anger felt by the people because they are being let down by poor planning decisions time and time again. Meeting targets of numbers built instead of quality and location of build, and consideration to the people who have already made Highbridge their home, is something that really needs addressing. Time is running out, and not only for using the S106 money, but for the diversity of our flora and fauna in this country. We need this green space, a place to breathe and unwind, a place to learn and explore, a place to heal, a place to meet. We need your respect, and we can then proudly announce, I live in Highbridge, rather than apologetically mumbling it under our breath. Please honour your own consultation and the original decision to provide green space for Highbridge, and give regard to climate change, which is included in your own policies now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Right. I'm now going to, as this is a reconsideration of the decision that we made previously, it was called in, as members know, to scrutiny. I now call upon the Chairman of Corporate Scrutiny, Councillor Brian Smedley, to present his recommendations. Councillor Smedley.
Okay, good morning, everybody. So the brief of the Corporate Scrutiny Committee of the 13th of July was to review the decision by the Executive to dispose of the land at Lakeside, Alport, Highbridge to Colne Residential, following the decision being appropriately called in. And of course, we heard some very passionate contributions from members of the public and their local councillors, along with responses from Sedgemoor officers. And as a result, we unanimously took the view that the Executive should be asked to reconsider their decision. And this position was reached on the following grounds. Firstly, the decision to sell this land acquired for public open space and the failure to bring forward any such use over 20 years. The land was acquired in 1996 and the intention was for use as public open space, but this was never implemented, and in particular it was not carried forward into the current local plan. Residents clearly firmly believe it to be public open space, and that's what they want it to remain. There's a perception that when Sedgemoor is faced with the decision between building homes and preserving the environment, the emphasis is automatically on building homes. And this is the same across the district, but in Highbridge they seem to particularly feel that enough is enough. There's a concern that, in fact, no efforts were made to bring forward any plan for this land, which was clearly acquired as public open space. Number two was the decision to sell green space in the Highbridge area, which is deficient in that locality. And residents and councillors made the point that their green space is rapidly disappearing, and attempts to rectify this in consequent local plans are not consistent. For instance, the Wall Road plans have been ponds have been referred to as green space within the local area. However, they're owned by an Anglian association, therefore don't comply with the accessibility criteria for general public use, and nor are they free of charge, so they should not be considered as a level 1 area. There's therefore concern over replacing a level 1 natural open space with a lesser level 2 space, which is only 1/3 of the original size. Third point is the threat to biodiversity of the site, particularly during this climate change crisis. Our key witness was Joy Russell, who's just spoken, and her evidence and contributions have shown in great detail the diversity of plants and animals within this location and how much these are enjoyed and appreciated by local residents. That there are concerns that the ecology report also referred to is actually just a desktop survey and therefore could be misleading. Also, any mitigation measures from developers for environmental effects will not be able to replace the full range of habitats that are currently present, and the wildlife is unlikely to survive relocation, and therefore biodiversity will suffer greatly as a direct result. Fourth point is the allocation of the Section 106 monies towards this site being transferred to the developer. The rationale given is that the transfer of the Section 106 monies to the developer would fulfil the original agreement by providing public open space in the new development to serve the residents of the potential new development plus residents of the neighbouring development. It's felt, however, that there's an undue haste to do this, as the Section 106 agreement runs out in 2022. In fact, Sedgemoor could have put more thought into determining how Section 106 money is spent at a later stage by the developer to ensure it complies with the intention of the agreement. And there still remains questions as to why, 8 years after it was agreed, that this money had not been implemented. Many local projects have applied to make use of this money and were told it didn't fit within the scope of the agreement. It's also claimed that access is too difficult, but clearly there's existing footpaths into the site. So a major question is, why can't the Section 106 agreement scope mean that it could be used to lay out the land, to improve the footpaths, to keep this natural green space for the benefit of the local residents, and also, as promised, to the employees of the Alport business site? Surely the council could be using the money itself instead of a developer. Point 5 is the desirability of keeping open space for the health and well-being of local residents. And there's obviously many benefits of open space for health and well-being. This is recognised by Sedgemoor in Sedgemoor's health and well-being strategy and evidenced by Natural England and the World Health Organisation, etc. So the Council is aware of this, recognising benefits such as reduced levels of obesity, improvements to mental health and better self-rated health. Our own Sedgemoor strategy says that health outcomes and inequality in health due to lower incomes are less pronounced where people have access to green space. And green areas provide shared space which enhance a sense of belonging and reduce social isolation. And Highbridge has a very high number of low-income families, and the current COVID-19 crisis has highlighted the importance of green space for communities. So keeping this green lung for residents to enjoy is surely an important aspect of our climate emergency commitments as a council. There's also a clear feeling that Highbridge has had its fair share of house building. Finally, item 6. Was sufficient weight given to the public consultation in making this decision? The public consultation showed overwhelming opposition, and there are concerns that this has not been given up enough weight within the consideration of this decision. That there's some 30 written objections, 700 handwritten signatures on a petition, and additional 500 signatures online, which were all summarised in the report to the executive. Whilst many of the objections do relate to planning, which has already been considered, we feel the point missed here is that whilst planning may be one use of land, that doesn't mean that the owner has to implement the permission. Just because something can be done doesn't mean it should be done. And the key question remains whether the proposed sale is the best interest of the people of Highbridge. The residents clearly don't think so. This is reflected by their elected representatives of all parties who've supported them. And there's an opportunity here to create a once-in-a-lifetime natural open space. That's what residents and their councillors want, and what it was believed that Sedgemoor also wanted when they'd promised this originally. So what is clear in summary is that this land is extremely valuable to and valued by the community as a whole. And this is especially obvious when you look at the video made by Joy Russell, which you've all seen. It's a large space, larger probably than you think. And many of you might be seeing it for the first time. And this would have been the same for the planning committee, but they didn't have the chance to visit the site as has been mentioned. It's clear that there was a heavy pressure not to hold that site visit, as members seemed to want to, there appeared to be a move to pass it quickly so that a developer could claim funding to build the houses within a short time frame. So when we see the drone footage in Joy's film, we can now understand even more why they wish to save it. Also a crucial point, in the film you catch sight of a Sedgemoor letter sent from 22nd of October 1998 by the then principal valuer Martin Roberts, which clearly pledges that land as public open space. And he wrote, "I confirm that the District Council bought this land with the specific intention of turning it into an area of public open space in due course." And Martin Roberts even took this to the local press at the time to emphasise this point, saying it would be landscaped, planted with trees, and become a public park for workers on the industrial estates and the local community. And he was our principal valuer, and he was speaking for us. He was speaking for Sedgemoor. And he wrote that so that residents would believe and trust Sedgemoor. And this letter was not raised also when it came to planning. So it's good to see that in the film at the moment. Now, we're asking you to review your decision in the light of that. And a crucial point here is that Sedgemoor is currently developing policies to meet the challenges of the climate emergency. And this is an obvious and ideal opportunity to demonstrate that this is genuine. A climate emergency action plan is being written now and should make sure in future that the appropriate infrastructure is included in any new build. And this should be policy by the end of this year for Sedgemoor. This will then be a material consideration in future cases such as this. And this could mean, for instance, that we only approve a sale such as if we incorporate larger open spaces into a development scheme. But we can choose to do that now. The climate crisis isn't working to an agenda and a set of motions and reports. It's happening all around us as we sit here. We need to act fast, and this is an opportunity to show that we're prepared to do that. We can choose to listen to the residents, to the local councillors, to the scrutiny committee, and take this on board, think again, and agree only to approve this sale if a fair compromise option for saving all or as much as possible of that green space is included. And finally, we have to address the credibility gap in consultation. Consulting cannot mean that we consult and then ignore if we don't get the right answer. It mustn't be a cosmetic box-ticking exercise. We've got the chance here to revisit that consultation and accept that this is not what the people who are consulted want. And what does consultation mean? It means we should take people's opinions on board so that people mustn't end up thinking, what's the point in consultations if we just get ignored again? So the new local plan that's going to be adopted in 2023 will involve extensive consultation, and people need to believe it's worth being consulted and that we'll listen to them. So this breathing space now gives Sedgemoor the chance to lead by example and to be seen to be more environmentally friendly, more visionary and more believable. Of course we need houses, but the people who live in those houses need to breathe. So we're asking you to review your original decision, having listened to the residents and their elected councillors, take their views on board and please make the necessary changes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for the time and trouble you took at the Scrutiny Committee to consider this matter. It's certainly a pleasure to hear you today, not sounding like a Dalek, but you've come through extremely clearly, and I'm grateful for that. Thank you. I'm now going, because a number of issues were raised in there that I believe might have been touching on planning, areas of planning. So I'm just going to go to Mr. Hellard to just give us a little bit of advice, if possible, please.
Yes, thank you, Leader. So I thought I'd give some advice to the executive in relation to what the decision is before you today. So, members, you'll recall that on the 24th of June, having considered the comments made pursuant to the advertisement of the proposed disposal of council land adjoining Lakeside, you resolved to approve the disposal of the land. That decision, as you know, was subject to a call-in by the requisite number of members in accordance with the council's constitution and was accordingly considered by the Scrutiny Committee on the 13th of July. Scrutiny Committee resolved to request that you reconsider that decision for the reasons set out in the report. Therefore, in accordance with the Council's overview and scrutiny procedure rules, the decision comes back to the next ordinary meeting of the Executive, i.e. today, and it's now for the Executive as the decision maker to reconsider the decision to dispose of the land. It's important for members of the Executive to remember that the decision made on the 24th of June, and therefore the decision being reconsidered today, was a decision relating to disposal of land. That was a decision made in the Council's capacity as landowner, and it's that decision to dispose of the land which you're considering today. You'll be aware that the site already has the benefit of a resolution to grant planning permission subject to completion of a Section 106 agreement. That was a decision properly made by the Development Committee based on material planning considerations. Planning is a non-executive function, and the planning decision is an entirely separate issue from the decision to sell the land. Pure planning considerations or references to matters which do not relate to the impact, positive or negative, of the disposal of the land are not factors which can properly be considered as part of the statutory process of the disposal of public open space in accordance with the Local Government Act. The decision for the Executive today is to balance any adverse consequences of the loss of the land, having due regard to, but not limited to, the relevant considerations of the Scrutiny Committee and the representations received, both for and against the disposal, against any advantages of disposing of the land. So issues such as the terms of the Section 106 agreement resulting from planning negotiations, historical decisions made in relation to Section 106 agreements and Section 106 monies are therefore not matters that are relevant to the balance before members of the Executive today. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. Right, so may come back to you later if we need further guidance on that. I'll now ask Mr. Mander or Mr. Tait if there's anything they wish to say with regard to the comments made by Joy Russell and the Chairman of the Scrutiny Committee.
Yes, it's Nick Tait here. Obviously, most of the matters we have provided quite extensive responses, either in the original executive report and at the Scrutiny Committee. But very briefly, I'll just touch upon the matters raised by Scrutiny again. So, in terms of the discussion around the Section 106 and the delivering the open space, Section 106 funds were actually secured in 2012. Through an adjacent development at Springfield Road. and as referred to previously, this area of land is only accessible through the existing public rights of way access. The critical issue and difficulty in implementing any intensification of the use by developing its formal open space has been the access across the railway line. Any increase use of that would increase the risk to public. It is already, that surface crossing is ranked the 38th most dangerous across the entire southwest region by Network Rail. It has trains travelling at speeds of upwards of 110 miles per hour. And again, any actions which increase the public use of that crossing would ultimately be putting lives in danger. To date, it's been impossible to secure alternative access into the site, and the Section 106 funding in themselves are insufficient to provide a pedestrian cycle bridge across the railway line. So that has been primarily the difficulty in trying to bring forward an alternative public open space proposal, and indeed as part of through the planning process. Obviously, as a development which includes residential and large areas of public open space, that has been able to address the access issues by negotiating with third-party landowners an alternative means from the A38. And just picking up, there was reference to obviously large numbers of people were on the site on Saturday. I'm not aware how they accessed that site, so I would certainly hope that they didn't actually use the level crossing. But whilst there's no enforcement of accessing it through the existing lakeside state, we have to remember that isn't the public right of way, that isn't a public means of access. And again, there was reference to alternative solutions being in place for the access. Again, I mean, we would be grateful to hear those, but we have been looking at this quite intensely over a period of probably 10 years. And to date, other than trying to provide an actual footbridge over railway, I'm not aware of any alternatives that would resolve that issue. Turning to the green space, again, important, there is an evidence base which sets out accessible natural green space, and that evidence base has the benefit of being independently scrutinised through the local plan inquiry, and that did or does identify the Walrow Ponds as level 1 accessible natural green space. It's a local nature reserve. There's a public footpath that runs north-south, providing people the opportunity to pass by the ponds. So in terms of the evidence-based natural green space, there isn't a deficiency in this part of Highbridge. There is a deficiency overall in terms of Burnham and Highbridge, and that is recognised. And so in terms of our actual standards and adherence to Natural England's guidance, it's quite simply not the case to say there is a deficiency of natural green space in this location. But important to add that the provision of the more formal public open space, equipped areas of play, etc., which is proposed through the planning application, would actually count as accessible natural green space. So it would in effect be adding to the quantity in this area in any case. Just picking up on the climate change issue, and because climate change is a very complex area to look at, it's integral in terms of our local plan and the location of new development, which is why the local plan seeks to focus new development in the most accessible locations where people can walk and cycle to services, shops, jobs, etc. And that is why, in terms of Burnham and Highbridge, there is a focus on new development within the identified settlement boundary. That's been picked up about the biodiversity under the climate change banner, absolutely a key consideration. And again, the evidence provided to scrutiny did provide all of the statutory consultee responses from Natural England and the county ecologists over how the ecology interests would be appropriately managed or any impacts mitigated And their conclusion was that there was no objection in terms of development proposed, subject to a number of quite rigorous conditions which will have to be complied with. And again, important to note that in terms of ecology, if that wasn't purely a desk-based survey, the applicants were required to undertake surveys, and they were then scrutinised by the statutory consultees. Just turning to the Section 106 monies, again, what we would, I think it is incorrect to suggest that these are being effectively just handed over to the developer. What through the planning process has been secured is additional land which will become public open space. That is additional to what is required to serve the needs of development as a whole, and that enables a locally equipped area for play to be provided, which would serve and be well related to the Springfield Road development. The Section 106 monies were secured specifically to provide off-site open space, which otherwise should have been provided within the Springfield Road development. And so obviously that development has been completed for a number of years, and currently there is no equipped areas for play for children to make use of. There is a very small local area for play, which probably has one small piece of play equipment in. And from my understanding, there is no formal play space within the Lakeside estate either. And so those Section 106 monies will be specifically to provide that equipped area for play and to improve the access to those areas, and that is entirely in accordance with the provisions in the legal agreement, the Section 106. And that public open space, as well as the public open space provided through the development, obviously is available not just for the new development, but for existing residents in the surrounding area. Just picking up on the health and well-being point again, we did make the point there are different, obviously there are different requirements, and people have different views or uses of open space. But in terms of health and well-being, actually providing areas, equipped areas for play, different and interesting areas for play. Certainly the additional area closer to Springfield Road, the suggestion is that would provide equipment more suitable for older children, young adults. So it could be the outdoor gym type equipment or some of the exercise equipment you might find on a trim trail. Encouraging young people to undertake exercise is very important for health and well-being, and so it would be consistent with those objectives. I don't think, and taking on board the advice, just in terms the legal advice, it's not appropriate to go into the details of the distribution of housing, the housing land supply, but those are all matters which were discussed in detail through the local plan process. The local plan process, which, as was mentioned, subject to extensive consultation and independent examination, and this is an up-to-date local plan which was adopted by the council following examination in 2019, and that drew conclusions about the appropriate location for development. It is important, we have a climate change a crisis to address. We are also having to address a housing crisis and are required to demonstrate and provide for housing needs across our district, and that has been done in a comprehensive process through the adopted local plan. So I think briefly that touches on the points raised, but obviously if there's further questions, we'll be happy to answer those in due course. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that comprehensive and concise understanding. Mr. Mander, is there anything you wish to add at this stage?
I think Mr. Tait has covered most of the points, but obviously I just want to reiterate the fact that, clearly the land was acquired to provide open space, and we made that clear at the time. But I think 20 years down the line, we got from 1996 to 2016, we took a view that maybe there's an opportunity for a developer to come forward which would provide a formal development which not only developed the site but also provided a more a better quality of, albeit a lot lesser area of open space for the locals to enjoy. We were increasingly frustrated by the lack of access into the site in terms of being able to sort of maintain it as an open space. And the challenge went out to the developer. There was an option agreement which gave them time to come forward with an acceptable form of development, which would lay out the site both for housing, but also with a provision of an open space which was more than you normally expect. So, this is what obviously went to the development committee, and they approved. So yes, I mean, I don't think anybody would deny that the original intention was to create an open space. Unfortunately, there are a number of obstacles in that way, and we are where we are at the moment, and clearly. Development committee felt that the current form of development covers those points.
Thank you. Can I just ask a question for clarification? We don't own all of the land there. Do we own, as a council, any of the accesses into the land at all, or what access does the council have into the land? Just for clarification on that, if you could.
Yeah, the only current access into the site is via a public right-of-way, public footpath. So we don't control any vehicular access at all into the site. And I think the site makes up about 65%, our land makes up about 65% of the whole development.
Okay, thank you. Right, I understand that Councillor Phil Harvey and Councillor Mike Murphy wish to address the executive. Councillor Phil Harvey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm starting my video. Right, you can see me now? Yeah. Okay, before I start on what I have prepared to say, I'd just like to make a comment on Mr. Tait's point about the Woolrow Ponds. He talks about it as being accessible. Now, I still disagree with him on this. There is quite rightly, a public footpath running alongside it, but that public footpath is separated from the ponds themselves by an 8-foot high chain link fence. So the ponds are really only accessible to members of the Angling Association and people who pay for a day licence for fishing. Anyway, I want to concentrate on 3 points, and I may go over some points that have already been made. First of all, I think the development of this land is unnecessary. The local plan runs until 2032, and it allocates 2,030 houses to Burnham and Highbridge. Now, houses already built or with planning permission total 1,204, and the plan continues to allocate greenfield sites totaling 670 units at Brew Farm, Phase 2, Isleport, and a further 52 units as an extension to Brew Farm. This brings the total to 1926, and if the Woolrow development is granted, 1962. Now, even though the Brew Farm site is being developed slowly, there are still 12 years for it to be completed, which, assuming they are completed, only leaves 68 more units to be found in the area. Now that works out at 6 houses a year, and does anyone seriously believe that 6 houses a year will not come forward? I can certainly think of some sites, so I contend that we do not need to develop this site. Secondly, I don't think that the sale of the land is a good deal. The agreed price for our 5.77 acres is £350,000, which is just over £60,000 an acre. The remainder of the site being sold to the developer is in 4 ownerships, and we've just been told it's 35% of the site. And yet, the total sums being paid by the developer to the 4 parties who own the extra pieces significantly exceed that being made to this council. Are we effectively subsidising a developer by setting too low a price on our land in order to ensure its development? If it's uneconomic to develop it unless we set such a low price, should we be developing it? Thirdly, Councillor Smedley has already referred to the 1998 letter to the local press. If I can quote from it, are we going to wait for this open space to be laid out until the 21st century? Or has there been a change of policy which the citizens of Highbridge are not aware of? Housing development is underway next to this land. Has the District Council decided on a more profitable role for the area? Our principal valuer replied to that letter saying, the letter cast doubt on whether Sedgemoor was going to go through with this project. The short answer is yes. And significantly, the yes was underlined and followed by an exclamation mark to emphasize the commitment. Well, we have waited till the 21st century, and it looks as if the letter writer in 1998 was correct. The land will be sold for housing. But you can change your minds and decide to honour that commitment. In so doing, you will retain the trust of and credibility with the people of Highbridge. If you don't, you risk being seen as a council which cannot be trusted. This isn't a single-issue campaign. We do not live single-issue lives. This is about the health and well-being of people and wildlife. It's about a biodiversity rich site in a country where 97% of unimproved grassland has disappeared. It is about the ecological education of our children. It is about promises made and the integrity and reputation of this council. I urge you to abandon the sale and retain the open space. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Murphy. Mr. Melchiorish, do we have Councillor Murphy with us?
Yes, he's still on the meeting. Councillor Murphy, have you unmuted? Right, he's now gone on to pause. You may wish to proceed to Councillor Keane whilst check that connection.
Fair enough. Okay, we'll try and get back to Councillor Murphy in a moment. Councillor Keane, is there anything you wish to say?
Thank you, Leader. I concur with everything that Mr. Harvey and Mr. Smedley have said, and I won't bore everyone with repeating it, but what they have said is evidenced, and I am extremely disappointed with the emphasis that Mr. Tait has put on the feelings and the statements. And I'm really so disappointed that there has not been a formalised visit to the site just to see for ourselves just how much value there is in the things that we can't see. But if we lose them, we have lost them forever. I can't say any more because it's just too emotional.
Right, thank you. I think the site visit that was referred to was a request to the Development Committee earlier this year. Mr. Murphy, Councillor Murphy, are you there? One more time, Councillor Murphy, are you there? No. Well, I think we'll have to proceed then, and if we can catch Mr. Murphy at a later point in the meeting, we will do so. Mr. Hellard, is there anything you wish to say following the comments by Councillor Harvey and Councillor Keane?
I think, sorry, I just put my video back on. I think just really to reiterate the comments I made earlier. we need to be very careful not to steer into planning issues, housing supply, local plan issues, whether the land needs to be developed, are all matters that are not relevant to your consideration today under the Local Government Act. Those are planning matters. Those have been decided by the Planning Committee, who have resolved to grant permission subject to the terms of the Section 106 agreement. So to reiterate, really, we need to focus on the impact, positive or negative, of the disposal of the land. That's all that you can consider as part of this statutory process. Thank you.
Okay,
I've rejoined again, Leader, if you can hear me. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yep, please. Yep, please go ahead, Councillor.
May I just make a comment, Leader, on the statement made by Nick Tait and Tim Mander before I make my presentation? It's only 1 minute. I understand fully that Sedgemoor felt stymied by the fact that options were taken out by the purchaser for land across the entrances towards the A38. I understand that. But you had the opportunity for more than 15 years to sign up those options, but failed to do so. And it's shocking that you allowed that. I'm not saying you did allow it, but it's shocking that the purchaser was allowed to go ahead underneath you and close off those exits, which is a shame. But the good news is that that all options are time-based. They're not fixed in stone. So that if, for example, you decided not to sell this land today, those options would highly likely fail because they would not be able to pay the people for the options if the land was not in their possession. So I just wanted to say that to you, that clearly, although it is difficult and you were stymied, I do sympathise with you, but the remedy is in your own hands. Thank you, Leader. I will get on with my presentation. Can you hear me all right, everybody?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Some quotes from Sedgemoor executives in letters, in local news, and in web pages, which convinced the locals that they were about to have this green space. An area of public space, 6 acres to be planted and landscaped, area to be public park, a recreation space for workers and residents, cycle path envisage, a green lung for Highbridge. And now we are here today as one to ask you to vote against disposal of this land, to stop any possible playing at politics with people's expectations, the worst kind, to resist the risk of bringing Sedgemoor into disrepute for failed promises. People such as Joy Russell and her colleagues are not members, I would remind you, of any political party as far as I know. They are simply campaigning for the right to their promised land, or their perceived promised land. And we are supporting them in this, that's all. This decision is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, we've said before, for the Green Park project. It was confirmed in writing from the Office of Sedgemoor's solicitor. Sedgemoor only had to secure the entrance to this field from Isleport for the project to go ahead. But the entrance is already there and sits next to the Isleport food area, a well-worn path and cycleway some 15 foot wide. It could be a road for vehicle traffic. In 2009, John Woodman, our very own, secured a walkway bridge for this pathway. I crossed that bridge when I walked the path on Sunday last and passed others going in the opposite direction doing the same. Of course, we look at the walkway opposite, which is a bit of controversy. Stop, look, listen, beware of trains. This is the standard sign on every railway crossing in Sedgemoor. The same at Crooked Lane for Brent Knoll, the same at Screech Owl for North Petherton, and the same at Speedwell Crossing. They all have kicking gates, they all have this sign. And let's face it, if, as Nick Tait says, it was the 38th most dangerous, there are modern telemetrics, which you are well aware of. They can flash lights, they can have an information panel. There's one on the Highbridge station, and tell you when the train is actually arriving, how many minutes. But the good thing is, with this sort of thing, the line is so straight that if you stand at the rail, you can see for almost 2 miles a train coming. It's a no-brainer. That's why Network Rail in general terms think it's quite safe. Clearly, if you're going to build houses there, that's a different story. But if you're not going to build houses, it is a perfectly safe crossing that people cross over every day to go to work. I believe Sedgemoor has created, I think the talk of near misses is in some ways fake, because there's no evidence to support it. I've seen families going over with prams and multiple kids and so on, because it's such a lovely area. Sedgemoor, by the way, has to be complimented on creating a new and exciting future with gravity, about to be filled with new industries, technologies, possibly even electric car production. With a giga lithium car battery factory secured for Wales, the M5 corridor is set for massive expansion. Our 6 acres of fields next to 8 acres of fishing lakes form a stunning natural park, and you can get into the fishing lakes by paying 70 pence a week. 70 pence a week to fish, to camp, to be there, to see the natural beauty of it. This green lung could provide a huge incentive for families looking for a healthy, active life to settle here. You have this one chance to stop this sale and reverse 20 years of inaction, 20 years of failing to take up offered options, 20 years of empty words, and decide not to sell this land, but develop it into a green park for the people of Highbridge, future generations, and our climate recovery. Say no to the sale. They deserve better than what you have planned. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your impassioned speech there.
Pleasure.
I would just point out to all members, this is nothing to do with politics at all. It is about doing what's best, and the executive, like full council on occasions, has to make some difficult decisions. And this is one of them, but we need to weigh up the pros and the cons of our original decision to see whether we feel that was the right decision under the circumstances, and that's exactly what we will be doing today. Mr. Hellard, is there anything you'd like to come back on that, please?
No, I would just agree with what you've with everything you've said there, Leader. Just reiterate what I've said previously.
Thank you, Mr. Mander or Mr. Tait.
Just very briefly, because a lot of this seems to hinge on access, which has been a significant issue, and why nothing has been done for a period of 20 years. And I think it's probably still slightly worrying about the surface level crossing. The Network Rail safety audit, which was provided as part of the consultee response on the planning application, clearly highlighted the dangers of all surface level crossings, but in particular, the 38th across the entire southwest. The issue isn't just about visibility, but it's also about the nature of users. In particular, they highlighted the danger for younger children using these crossings. There's plenty of, well, unfortunately and tragically, evidence of children in terms of playing in the area, playing chicken with trains because they can see a long way, not realizing that some trains are stopping at Highbridge, others aren't. And so anything which increases the use of that crossing, which is dangerous already, would be increasing the risk. And there is no doubt about that, and that is a very significant consideration in terms of providing a safe, accessible public open space if means of accessing it aren't safe in the first place. And I suppose it would come back to saying there's been a lot of suggestions about, or mentions about, there are solutions to the accessibility of this area, but to date none have been suggested, and none have been suggested even over the 3 or 4 weeks we've been discussing this matter in detail, that would have enabled us to go and do some further work on that. So, I would urge people not to downplay, the safety aspects, because the one thing we wouldn't want is for there to be any sort of accident and then turn around and say, why did this happen? Just in terms of the accessible natural green space, I will just, categorically just say that the Walrow Ponds do count as accessible natural green space. They're set out in our assessment which is evidence-based on our website and was, as I say, independently scrutinised, and they meet the Natural England definition. So it is a statement of fact that they do count towards accessible natural green space in that area. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mander. Anything further?
Nothing much more to add, Leader, other than the fact that when we acquired the site, the vendor or the person who sold the land did retain what's called a ransom strip around the land, and has not been a particularly easy person to deal with. So it always made life difficult in terms of trying to improve access into the site. So we were a bit stymied by his actions, basically.
Thank you. Right. Now, before we ask members of the council, if there are any other members of the council who'd like to speak on the subject, just like to remind everybody that we've had a further influx of letters. I believe we've had about 24 emails since this was considered by the scrutiny committee. Some for, some against, and I'd just like to thank everyone, both the objectors and supporters, for taking the time and trouble to write in to the executive. They have all been circulated, and members have read them. I'd like to turn to other members of the council at this moment. Is there anyone who'd like to make a comment or ask any questions at this time? Councillor Evans.
Thank you very much, Mr. McGinty, and I'm sure you'll agree we've seen some excellent presentations this morning, both from Joy Russell and Councillors Murphy and Harvey. We may not agree or disagree, but I would hope that we recognise the passion on both sides. I was curious that you've received a good number of correspondence on this. You said on both sides. I'd be interested to understand the balance there between the two sides, just to get a scale of the public opinion there. One of the letters that struck me most was from an accountant who is incredibly concerned about the whether we're meeting our legal responsibility for financial management under the appropriate legislation, and whether this might be subject to further investigation under audit. So I do wonder what the opinion is of the financial officer on this, and whether this opens up the council to any concern on that front. I'm also struck by the comments that were just made about new information coming up about the accessibility of the site and so on. There were, as you will be aware, there were I reckon it was approaching 100 people on the site at the weekend. I spoke to some of them. There were documents that were brought along that had certainly not come to the attention of councillors or campaigners on this issue, and therefore I wonder if there is more information. I don't think we should be making a decision dismissing that has only come to light at the last minute, as was suggested. I think we need to take that information fully into account, and all options should be investigated. It was very clear at the scrutiny meeting that there was a very strong and persuasive case that this land should not be sold for development. It is undeniable both that it is legally not public open space, and at the same time it is undeniable that everyone inspected it to be public open space, because it was referred to as public open space and acquired as public open space by this council. Not least that it was referred in such terms by the district valuer in a public statement in the press. It's been referred to in such terms in council reports. It is therefore widely perceived, though technically not legally, public open space. And I do think that there is a moral obligation that if, apologies, there is a moral obligation if that we have referred to that, if we have made those commitments, those promises in public, the public perception, as Joy Russell quite rightly pointed out earlier, that we are trying to wriggle out of our responsibilities, our commitments and our promises. And my concern is that this will have a poor reputation on this council going forwards, and that needs to be factored into the decisions that you are taking this morning. Thank you very much for your time. I would respectfully ask that we consider this in more detail. If necessary, go to the site. If necessary, follow up the extra information that has become apparent this morning. I think it is important that we make these decisions transparently and take into account all the facts.
Thank you. I must say I'm not aware of any of the information that's come forward since the Scrutiny Committee being new information. It was information, and I understand it, that was available to the executive when we made the original decision. Excuse me. Okay. I will ask the legal representative to clarify that situation with regard to any new information. And we'll get that answer. Thank you, Mr. Hellard.
Yes, sorry, Leader. I'm not aware of there being any new information either, save for the report from Scrutiny. No.
Thank you. And local authorities have the ability to divest themselves of assets under market value, or may be deemed under market value, if they think it's in the best interest of the population as a whole, or best interest of their communities. So I'm fairly comfortable with that. And I'll also say, one fact is very true. There is a lot of passionate views about this situation. And I've had various counts of people at the field that range from 30 and now up to 200 people. But that doesn't decry the fact that those people who were there and have taken the time to respond feel very strongly about this situation, and we recognise that. And as I go back again and say, we have to make difficult decisions as councils, and it has to be for a council-wide decision in the best interests of the communities that we make those decisions, and we will. And again, I'll say what we're doing here is reviewing our original decision that was taken a few weeks ago. We've got Councillor Human.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
This may be a surprise, but for me to come on this morning, but I've been taking a very great interest in the debates that have been going on so far. I've read a lot of the articles about it. I've talked to a lot of the people about it. I know I'm not the councillor for Highbridge and Burnham, but I am next door in Mark and Wedmore. I'm a Conservative councillor, and having looked at this and weighed it up, I do feel we have some sort of moral need to keep the area as a green site. I think it would add huge weight to our green credentials, would be a refreshing change from pushing to build houses anywhere and everywhere we could find an open space. And I think it would also really cement the relationship of our council with one of its most important hubs, that of Highbridge. The people of Highbridge have given their opinions in very large form, and I think perhaps sometimes we have to respect what people living where they do want. just by building more houses is only going to suck more people into the town, which is already having its fair amount of building going on around the town. So I would like to say, Executive, it would be a very bold and very brave decision to change your mind, but I would ask you to. Thank you.
Thank you. I would just reiterate the point that was made earlier by Mr. Tait, that we have a current local plan and we have a certain need for housing, but I understand the points you've made. I'm just going to go to Mr. Mander, who's going to comment on the best price.
Thank you, Leader. Yeah, just to confirm that when we entered into it was a fixed price option agreement well, the executive approved in 2016. It was actually completed, I think, in the middle of 2017. But it was at a price which reflected the fact that the land was subject to various ransom payments, and it was a price which was something like 7 or 8 times what we paid for it. So I was satisfied at that time it represented best price. You did refer to the fact that under the general consent orders that local authorities can sell land at less than best price. This wasn't the case here, but if we wanted to, we do have those powers. But at the time the option agreement was entered into, it reflected the best price.
Thank you. I've got Councillor Mike Murphy. I'll let you come back briefly if you wish.
It's very kind of you, Leader. I will be very brief. I just would like you to know, you have said that there were people have said there was nothing new, but I have to tell you that from my personal experience getting into this thing, it all started with the disturbance on the lakeside at the top, the small lakeside copse of houses at the top with the lake. And it began to develop into this question that came into everybody, why are we doing this? And at the same time, and so therefore I started to investigate it. But at the same time, for the first time, I have learned new things from the publication of Martin Roberts' letter, which I only saw literally days ago. From what he said about the walkway, which I didn't even know about until I walked down it, and now I'm learning that you're saying that the crossing at the railway is a 38th dangerous crossing. It's a long way from the first, of course, but I have never had a chance to investigate that because it's brand new information. So I think that what people are saying, Mr. Revens and various others, I think that has merit, Leader. It definitely has merit. We should be able to review this and get. I mean, I'm caught in a place which I have never been before, and so this is really new for me. It must be for everybody. Thank you, Leader, for letting me speak.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I would just reiterate, I don't believe anything that we've heard today is new information or necessarily information we can consider as part of the disposal of this land. I take the point, and and I hear the comments, and I hear the passion that people are speaking with. Certainly, it was raised at the executive that this was an extremely dangerous level crossing. The rail company, it was stated that they would object to anything that actually increase the footfall across the level crossing because it is not suitable, and we all know of accidents that can take place on level crossings whether you have a good visibility or not, and certainly that doesn't bear thinking about. I don't know whether I'll just go to Mr. Hellard again just to see if he wants to say anything on those comments.
Thank you, Leader. Well, just to reiterate, really, I'm not aware of anything new. I believe the comments in relation to the crossing, as you say, were before exec, before the executive, and were mentioned at the scrutiny committee. So I'm certainly not aware that is new information.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other members of council who wish to make a comment or ask any questions at this time before I go to the executive? I'll take that silence as no. Executive members, any comments or questions? I will, I've heard the scrutiny committee. I sat through that, and I've heard, as I've said, an awful lot of impassioned speeches today, and at the scrutiny committee, and as I say, we do on occasions have to make difficult decisions, but they have to be decisions that we feel will benefit the community. Clearly, from this, I will just say, which is slightly off topic, the ability for Sedgemoor District Council to develop that land there as public open space is virtually a non-starter. Whatever happened years ago, we didn't secure the access to the site, which would enable us to do that. We have been given the information that the flat level crossing is a potential danger, and no doubt will at some point cause accident, or will indeed be closed for whatever reason. So we have a very difficult decision here. It does appear from our first deliberations that the only way in which we could develop any form of open space in this area, which is slightly bigger than that which would be required by any normal development, is to dispose of this land. And on balance, we have to make the decision today. I'd be pleased to hear from any other member of the executive. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you. Sorry, Leader, I couldn't quite get unstuck. Excuse me. Can I first say that I would also like to thank all of the people that have written in, and there have been differing views. You're absolutely right. There have been people that believe, in their support of actually changing the land and making it a developing land for many, many different reasons. So there are some differing views, and there's some supporting and some against, of course. My concern was raised at our early executive meeting previously regarding the railway crossing, and I'm glad to see that Network Rail have identified the dangers of using the railway. We've been through the most difficult time in our history over the last few months, and I think it has focused the mind. I think whatever was decided or whatever was muted before, there has to be decisions changed. I believe the disposal of this land will enable a safer environment for our children and young people. It'll be replaced by a safer walking and cycling rather than what it is now. And the safety of the land really does concern me. I do understand the passion about an open space, but I think we live in different times. We live in different times continually now. We have to focus our mind. And I know we're not allowed to go in it, but I do believe that many families will really benefit from having new homes and a lovely area that they can enjoy as well, with a lovely community, because there's no doubt the people of Highbridge and Brennan are lovely people that have written in, have been very, very articulate and very nice, as are councillors, and I do respect their views, I really do, but I do feel this is the right decision. Thank you.
Thank you. And reference to a question that I was asked earlier and I forgot to ask, I apologise, Mr. Councillor Rebens. So far, the comments and emails that I've had, overwhelmingly objecting. I've had 22 objection emails. I've had 1 supporting letter and 3 phone calls supporting the sale. It's just unfortunate that those people who have rung or spoken or written in support feel somewhat intimidated and wish to retain their anonymity, but nonetheless they have made contact, and I'm grateful for them adding to the debate. Is there anyone else on the executive who would like to make comment or speak, please? No, okay then, if no one wishes to speak, we'll go. I don't know whether the chief exec wishes to make any comment.
Duncan, I've had my hand up and put an...
I'm sorry, Councillor Caswell.
Yes, it's on the question I had has been partially answered by yourself. The level crossing, well, not the level crossing, the pedestrian rumble crossing across the line there. I can remember that years and years and years ago as being a very dangerous crossing. And if we go back to recent news headlines, there is a move to remove the one near Weston-super-Mare, which is in a similar position, but as where 2 young people were killed not so long ago. And that's going to be removed and a bridge put over and everything like that. These rumble track crossings are phenomenally dangerous and should never be used, really, in my mind. I know there's no other way in some cases to get across the railway line at that place, but it used to be 2 cottages down by the ponds there that are now, I think, have been demolished. And it was treacherous to get across that line. And that's with, dare I say, showing my age, steam trains, in some respects. And trains are going much faster now and they're much quieter. But on the principle of development, that's already been settled. The planning department, our planning team, have settled whether it should be developed or not, and that's a given. All we're here to do is to see what we can do if we can or we wish to reconsider the sale of that land. And I appreciate all the passion that's gone into the people that have spoken today. And it's a great thing to talk about this. I've led, as some of you may know, I led a thing about a development there where I live. And fortunately, we lost the argument, but never mind. And it never happened. But that's another story. I think we need to consider deeply and have thoughts about whether we are actually going to sell this land or not. And to be quite honest with you, what happened back in 1996 is somewhat different now with the state of the economy. It's the state of the housing, whereas we desperately need houses in all areas. And with the new development at Gravity and places like that, more and more housing will be required because of the employment potential. So I'm still holding my breath, and I just wanted to make the point about the level crossing. It's the pedestrian rumble cross. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to ask, slightly out of turn then, I don't know whether Councillor Gilling wishes to say anything at all.
Hello, can you hear me, Leader?
Yes, I can, yes.
Right, you are. I can only endorse everything that Councillor Caswell has just said. Housing is of critical importance to this district, as it is nationally. The other factor which I think is vital to underline is that rail is safety, and the rail crossing, to my mind, is lethal and should not be entertained as possible access route, and should not be, I would hate to see a child of some sort in the play area being put at risk in that respect. And I think this council could not hold its head up with pride if anything of that nature should happen. So I've got no reason to change my decision or opinion from the last meeting. I feel as passionately as some do that is a vital issue. The wildlife argument is well made, but nevertheless, I feel that the wildlife is migratory and can be accounted for in other areas. But nevertheless, my decision has not had cause to be altered since then, and everything that Mike Caswell has said, I endorse entirely. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, and I'm going to push Councillor Duddridge as well to make a comment and see how he feels, please. Councillor Duddridge.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yeah, I've followed this very carefully. Obviously, I was at the last executive meeting. I attended the scrutiny meeting. I rewatched scrutiny on our YouTube channel. My ward in Bridgewater probably shares certain characteristics with Bridgewater. We're not over-endowed with green space. We cherish the space that we have got. But one overriding issue that comes up is housing. We need good housing, affordable housing for our residents and the people that are going to move here. And we've heard about moral duty today, and I take on board what everybody said, the passion from residents, from councillors, but we also have a moral duty, I think, to make sure we can house our people in decent accommodation. And much as I regret the loss of this green space, I think our priority now must be provide houses for our people, and I still see no reason to change my decision from a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll go back now to the Chief Exec.
Thank you, Leader. I mean, obviously, I've listened very, very carefully to what's been said this morning, and I can only reiterate what others have said. There are clearly some very genuine, strong, impassioned views, which I fully respect. I think the only thing I would want to say, as in my capacity as Chief Exec, is, this is something that has been going on for many years. It's been recognised that certain things were said years ago, while I was here, I have to say, but the world has changed and has moved on, and that means, I think, when we consider things, we have to consider them in the light of the circumstances as they present themselves. And one thing I'm absolutely confident of is that the officers that have presented today and officers that have been involved have worked extremely hard and with an open mind, and looked at the risks, the opportunities, and negotiated what we feel. I am straying off the point maybe slightly, but making sure that whatever happens at the end of the day, it is the best result for the people in the area, and I think I have to respect them for that. I don't wish to sway political views, but I think you've been presented with all of the facts. I am convinced and satisfied that every avenue has been explored, and you've had a very full report both previously and again today, and that would be the way I see things at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, and not wanting to be accused of not allowing anyone to speak, I'll allow Councillor Evans just to come back briefly. He wants to ask a question.
Many thanks, Leader. I do appreciate you giving me just the opportunity to ask one more question. I appreciate from the comments that it looks like we're going to lose this one, but I would ask whether we could look at the £350,000 that's accruing from the sale of this land being spent in some way for the benefit of the community in Highbridge, please.
Right, thank you for that. I will go to Mr. Hellard for any concluding comments.
Thank you, Leader. Just to sum up, really, what I've said before. Decision for the executive is to weigh up the pros and cons, to balance any adverse consequences of the loss of the land against the advantages of disposal of the land, and decide where the balance lies. Thank you.
Thank you. And can I ask Mr. Mander or Mr. Tait to make any comments? And I think maybe we need just a bit more information on the question that Councillor Evans has just asked about the sale. I mean, presumably the money would go into general funds for allocation through the normal procedures. Is that correct? I'll ask Mrs. Turner to answer that one in a minute, but concluding comments from Mr. Tait and Mr. Mander, please.
Thank you. Nothing really to add. We've obviously had a very extensive debate about all of the issues, and hopefully, just in terms of my role, was to provide context and background, and in terms of the matters raised. But I've not been. There have been no new issues which I feel need any further response from myself. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Mander.
Nothing much more to add, Leader, other than to say I'm sure we can all learn lessons from this whole exercise, particularly when it comes to acquiring a land which really hasn't got very straightforward access to it. Fortunately, I wasn't involved with that negotiation at the time, but I'm sure hindsight is a wonderful thing. But we are where we are.
Thank you, and Mrs. Turner.
Thank you, Leader. Just to clarify, in terms of the capital receipt that we get for this piece of land, it would go into the general fund, and members would approve how that money is allocated to capital schemes as they come forward.
And I'm sure Councillor Evans will have an input into the spending of that money should the sale go ahead. Mrs. Griffin, any final comments?
Just to say, Leader, I think today, we've had a very, very informative and useful debate. I think it exemplifies or really shows how difficult decisions can be for local authorities at times. But I'm not going to repeat what other people have said. You've been presented with all the details, and I've heard what's been said. Nothing else from me. Thank you.
Thank you. In that case, then I will come to the vote, and the vote that we're considering here will be: do we uphold the decision that we made at the previous executive, which was to dispose of the site, given the information that we've had, the scrutiny committee evidence that was taken and presented to us here today? And in doing so, I'd just like to thank all members of the public, all members for taking part today, and a special thank you to the officers, including Rose Stokes, for the preparation of the report that went to the Scrutiny Committee last week. So, members, without further ado, for or against the original decision, and I'll start with Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I have seen and heard all the debate, and I agree to uphold the original decision. I would say this has been a very comprehensive and very, very, large debate, and we've listened to everything, and it has been given. I wouldn't like anyone not to think that we haven't given them time. We certainly have, but I would like to uphold the decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Caswell.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, I've listened to the debate with great interest. It has been a full and frank debate, and I really do, think the people that have come forward today and have spoken with real passion. But on the balance of everything, I would say I have to support the original decision.
Right, thank you. Councillor Doddridge.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. I'd just like to add my thanks to everybody that's participated today. It's not been an easy one by a stretch of the imagination, but I'm happy to uphold the previous decision.
Thank you. Councillor Gilling.
Thank you, Leader. Like everybody else, I've listened with intent to the debate and in interest with the debate. And I'm just so thankful that we don't live in a communist state where decisions are made at all. And I will willingly uphold this decision that was taken 2 weeks ago.
Thank you. And that just comes down to me. And I would say, on balance, I support the original decision as well. And that balance is, weighing up what's in the best interest of the local community and people who are in desperate need of housing. I think this is the only way we're going to get an enhanced play area, albeit smaller, and at the same time, we will be removing a very dangerous structure that Network Rail will also be happy about its removal as well. And I think it's that balance of protecting people's lives, giving them an opportunity to have an open space, albeit smaller, gives me the feeling that the original decision was correct. I'll then go to Mr. Melhuish.
Thank you, Leader, and that's just to confirm that decision was a unanimous decision with the 5 members of executive who were able to vote at the meeting.
Right, thank you. Therefore, consideration of that matter is now being carried out. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for everyone for their comments today and work and information. Thank you. I now propose that we'll just have a 10-minute break, comfort break, before we come back and deal with agenda item 7 on the agenda today. So thank you very much. See you back in
Yes, Leader, I can see and hear everything, and I am present.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Doddridge. Are you there? Councillor Doddridge. We'll come to you in a second. Councillor Gilling.
Yes, Leader, I am present. I can hear and see everything. Thank you. Can you see me?
Oh, nearly. Yeah.
Oh, that's all right. That's enough then.
Yeah, thank you. I'm welcoming back Councillor Healey.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I can see and hear very well, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Keane.
Yes, present. I can see and hear. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going back to Councillor Doddridge. Are you there? Obviously having slightly longer comfort break than most. Yeah. So, Mr. Melhuish, are we okay to proceed without Councillor Doddridge?
Yes, Leader, there are sufficient members in the room, so you can proceed. If Councillor Doddridge does return and hasn't obviously heard all of the presentation, then...
Sorry, everybody, I'm here. It's a small technical issue. Apologies.
That's okay. That's fine. I was just going to add, if that hadn't been the case and Councillor Doddridge had returned partway through, then he would not have been able to register a vote on the next item.
Okay, thank you. We're all here and all together. We come on then to agenda item 7, which is fixed price quotation framework, wet floor showers for disabled facility clients. And I'll start with Councillor Andrew Gilling, and we're joined by Mr. Trevelyan. Councillor Gilling. Oh, Councillor Gilling, you were there.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Sorry for the interruption, bit of IT trouble here at this end, but I'm sure Mr. Trevelyan is in a far better position than I am to be able to fill in the details on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Trevelyan, then. Members will probably remember that we've had similar reports to this in the past, authorising the use of tendering. Yeah, Mr. Trevelyan.
Thank you, Councillor McGinty. Thank you, Councillor Gilling. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to present the report. You may have seen a similar report, as Councillor McGinty said before, requiring approval of the fixed price quoting framework. We brought a report to the Executive on the 22nd of January 2020 asking for a recommendation to begin the tendering process for the fixed price quoting. The fixed price quoting system we use to be able to obtain our contractors for our wet floor showers and disabled facilities grants, because ordinarily without the framework we would have to get 2 quotes each time for doing an adaptation, which increases the timescale and also involves variable prices, because each contractor will provide a bespoke price, and invariably what we found is it causes an increase in price compared to using a fixed price system. We save somewhere in the region of around about £1,800 per installation by using fixed price quotations compared to procuring quotes each time, and we can save between 4 and 6 weeks in relation to our fixed price quotation system. So what we ask here to do is that we have gone out to tender following approval of being able to go forward. You served an OG notice and we invited contractors to express an interest. We received 55 expressions of interest and received 29 bids. We try and encourage a rotational basis on those contractors we award using a mean price, because it ensures that we get a good group of small to medium enterprise businesses locally in our area. But also within that we get a mix of the larger contractors as well, some of which work with homes in Sedgemoor, and that wealth of experience across all those contractors can ensure that they're all learning from each other as well. And what we do then is we rotate those contractors in turn for each job that we have. So where we're at now is we wrote out to all the contractors with the mean average price, and they were sent to 27 tenderers advising them of this decision, and they've all come back to say that they would like to proceed moving forward, and now subject to approval from executive, there then will be a standstill period before we award the contract. That's it, thank you, and open to any questions.
Thank you. Is any member of the council or wish to ask any questions before I come to the executive? No. Okay, then I'll go to Councillor Caswell.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Mr. Trevelyan. That was a quick canter through the process, which I had an awful lot to do with it when I was in the housing department. What strikes me is that at one time we used to have a contract with a particular company or firm to carry out these disabled facilities grants, wet floor showers, overbath showers, etc. And correct me if I'm wrong, you're now saying that each individual one we go out to tender for. Well, in some cases we found, going back a number of years, that by the time you did that, and it's why we went for a long-term tender, is the fact that because of this, the poor person that was disabled and requiring the wet floor shower had to wait months and months and months before we could do anything. So I think that, to go for a tender and have one person doing the lot it would be a better option. But are you saying that we are still going out individually?
Thank you for your question. No, we're not. No, we used to. The contract you might be referring to is the contract through Homes in Sedgemoor for their upgrades to their Decent Homes programme, which is two contractors. And where we have our Homes in Sedgemoor properties, we contribute towards any adaptation work that might be done in those properties when normally the person would have a bathroom upgrade. It just saves time and saves us having to do a DFG. Now, what I was saying in relation to loan occupiers, etc., is the legislation normally requires us to go out to quotation each time for our adaptations, usually a minimum of 2 quotations. But what we're saying here is that this fixed price quotation is a new framework, but based upon the previous framework we had, whereby we just use a series of contractors who work to the same price, but we don't have to go out to a quote each time. What this process does, it means that we just award a contractor that fixed price is already tendered for this once already. So in other words, what we're saying is it's just a contract that runs for up to 5 years, but the contractors are already appointed through this process.
And I think what Mr. Trevelyan was saying was that this is a far speedier conclusion to the situation than any other option that we have considered before. Councillor Caswell, you want to come back?
Yes, well, I'm very pleased to hear that. But it wasn't the Decent Homes I was talking about. It's when we used to do the disabled facilities grants as part of the surveyor's duties within the housing department. It's long before Decent Homes and things like that. But you've got a great idea, and it should be supported. I'm happy if Councillor Gilling is going to propose it. I'm happy to support it and second it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Healey.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yes, Mr. Trevelyan, if you don't mind me asking, yeah, really pleased to see, we've got a fixed price tender. It's the right way to go, obviously. Just one thing springs to mind, of course, in these unfortunate times we live in. Of course, I know you know that the price of raw material, which is now in sort of, if you like, in a bit of a state, because we do bring a lot of the stuff into the country. So can we be assured either you've put a factor in with the fixed price quotation, or the developer, the construction company are happy to continue with the pricing structure as it is, please?
Thank you, Councillor Healey. Thank you for the opportunity to answer that question. It's a very good, valid question. As part of our recovery plan between April and to this point where we're commencing our works from this week, we've been in contact with all the contractors in this system and also with all the suppliers as well to have an understanding of material demand and prices, etc. And the contractors have all written back and the suppliers to confirm that they can proceed still on these prices.
Really pleased to hear that, and well done to the whole process, because I'm really pleased from a commercial point of view, which obviously is my portfolio, is that, you know, we're not going to be, don't take this the wrong way please, maybe the terminology is right, ambushed in the future. So well done, really pleased to hear that, really good bit of work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. I'm not going to bore everyone with saying the same thing. I think, Mr. Trevelyan, you know the right processes and the right way to do things. This seems an excellent way. Anything to speed up, and yet not forget wet rooms and wet floors to enable people to live in safety. And the many falls that we have to deal with, this is a marvellous enablement. So well done to you, and I just crack on and get it done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Does any other member of the exec or officer wish to make any comment? It seems pretty clear to me that this is a bit of a no-brainer that we need to crack on with as quickly as possible. If there's no further comments, then it's been moved and seconded. We'll come to the vote. I'm happy to support. I have seen and heard the whole debate. Councillor Slocum.
Thank you, Leader. I've seen and heard the debate. More than happy to approve the recommendation along with my colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Caswell.
Yes, Leader. Happy to, I've seen and heard the debates and happy to support and second the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Duddridge.
Yes, Leader. Very happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor Gilling.
Thank you, Leader. More than happy to support the recommendation and propose them, but also to thank Mr. Trevelyan for the amount of work that he's put into this project.
Oh, team effort, team effort.
Don't give him too much praise. I can see that head getting bigger there. Councillor Healey.
Yeah, thank you, Leader. Yeah, I've seen and heard the debate, and really happy to support this motion.
Thank you. And Councillor Janet Keane.
Thank you. I have read all the documentation and I have heard the debate, and I am happy to agree the recommendation.
Thank you. And then going to Mr. Melhuish.
Yes, thank you very much, Leader. I'm pleased to confirm that that's a unanimous decision. So the recommendation as set out in Agenda Item 7 is unanimously carried.
Thank you. And thank you very much, members, for your attendance today in what was a difficult decision, the initial decision for us to make. And I thank you for your patience and perseverance and for listening to all the comments that were made. And I hope in time, with hindsight, looking back, it will be judged that that was definitely the right decision to make on Agenda Item 6. But thank you very much for your attendance today. There being no further business, I declare the meeting closed. Thank you. Thank you.